What's the difference between strategy and planning?
Strategy should answer the question of why you deserve to rank at the top of the page. It's the underlying approach. The strategy isn't just the plan. The strategy is the big picture answer to why your content should rank above other things that were already there. One of the problems with SEO is actually if you can get inside the head of the customer as a content marketer, you're trying to get into the mindset of your target customer. Yet marketing has been tactically focused. The last 25 years or so, it's almost been like a kind of technological arms race. People who could figure out SEO first would do the best, or could figure out Google Ads. SEO isn't just a magical tactic anymore. You can't just throw $500 at some links each month.
Steve Jobs was saying that people don't know what they want. How do you recommend people going about that?
Do the research, get the insight, figure out a plan to make something better. The initial part of strategy is coming up with the ideas. Then the research is to test them and look what's out there. Then the actual strategy is...
Welcome to SEO Gurus. In today's episode, we welcome Marcus Miller. Marcus is a digital marketing consultant based in Birmingham, UK. Marcus studied computer science and started his career as a web developer around 1999. Just as Google started to dominate the search landscape and fell down the SEO rabbit hole where he is still playing around today. 25 years later, Marcus now runs the UK SEO and marketing agency Bowler Hats, where he helps businesses understand the modern marketing environment, develop marketing plans, and run successfully marketing campaigns. This episode is brought to you by GHA Marketing, and we hope you'll enjoy our conversation with Marcus.
Marcus, when it comes to SEO, what's the difference between strategy and planning?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you do a search for SEO strategy, what you're going to find is lots of articles that are essentially about planning. Now, you can debate what strategy means. Does strategy mean, is strategy the entirety, the plan and everything else, and, or is strategy something else? Now, certainly, to me, strategy is the missing, is often the missing piece in most SEO campaigns. Strategy should answer the question of why you deserve to rank at the top of the page, of why people, it's the underlying approach. Now, if you dive into a traditional kind of, SEO, SEO is a tactic. Tactics are informed by strategy. So you do need a plan, but if all you do is you follow a kind of fairly kind of, typical SEO plan, and you go and research some keywords, and then you create an article, and then, you hope that article ranks, or, you then have to do whatever the normal kind of SEO tactics are to promote that article, whether you're doing some guest posting or whatever it may be. If that article isn't better than everything that's already out there, then you're making the rest of the SEO job way more difficult than it needs to be. If that article is better, whatever better may mean, than other things that are out there, and genuinely deserves to rank above other articles that are there, or at least amongst other articles that are there, then you're making all of the other SEO tactics that you have to do to promote that article far easier. Strategy is the big picture. It's what makes something different or better. It's quite easy to see how this gets lost in the kind of the traditional SEO kind of approach. Let's say, I don't know, maybe you're a kitchen retailer and you sell kitchen units online, and you identify one of the things that your potential customers might search for is how to measure kitchen units, or how to measure my kitchen. This is a step they will go through prior to actually kind of, going to, selecting someone to buy the kitchen off. So there's real utility to ranking for that kind of search term and getting in front of someone at that point, and maybe, gathering an email address or whatever it is. But the reality is, I've just picked that one out of the blue because we're actually having a kitchen fitted at the moment. The reality is there's going to be 100 articles out there that are already done. And, how is your article going to be, how are you going to promote it? Well, you could just go the traditional, there we go, we've created something as good as the majority of things that are out there, but then it just becomes a painful war of attrition to try and just promote that article. So, it's the strategy, to loop back and answer the original question, it's the big picture of why whatever you're promoting, whatever you're creating, and then promoting is better, and why it deserves to rank highly.
Okay, so much to unpack here. Back to the first point that you mentioned. SEO is about why you should be ranking for a keyword. Does that make planning not when you should be ranking, but when you should take the steps in order to rank for that keyword? Back to the difference between planning and strategy?
Once you've come up with the idea, planning is everything you need to then do. So you've almost got to go even further back. Before you can determine what's better or different, you've got to identify a need of your potential customer that connects to your business somehow. Like, for instance, the kitchen measurement is a good one because I think it's pre-purchase or kind of product research. You've then got to review what's actually out there, and if that question has been extensively answered before, only by looking what's out there can you determine something that may be different or better. Once you figure out what that different or better is, the plan then comes into the creation of that and whatever it actually is, and the promotion of that. So the things that would typically feature within an SEO plan, or planning process, like keyword research, content creation, they all still need to be done. But the strategy piece comes before that. The strategy isn't just the plan. The strategy is the big picture answer to why your content should rank above other things that are already there.
So to your other point then, and to go back to the kitchen stuff, because I think this episode will be heavily kitchen related. And I love that. Like, when you say a better article than what's out there, like, how do you actually come up with that? Because the thing I'm thinking is, like, I'm thinking about all the young SEOs arriving in the place, right? A bit putting myself into my own shoes. Haven't all the relevant articles about kitchen stuff already been written? Like, it's basically going to be impossible to compete with that?
Exactly. That's exactly the problem, isn't it? So
super cool. So I should change career. All right. That's
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. If you have a look at the kind of articles that you tend to find if you search around SEO strategy, they'll often acknowledge this, but it really is given lip service, and it's just, simply often just described as, create something better. The fundamental strategic problem is, how do you create something better? What is the process or the framework to create something better? Now, one of the problems with SEO that we tend to see is a lot of the stuff out there is actually pretty lazy. It's often as good as it needs to be, rather than as good as it could be. You've got to come up with a way or a process to try and create something better. Now, there are a couple of tools. I'm a big fan of traditional kind of marketing methodologies, things that have, stood the test of time over, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, whatever it may be. And however you can leverage these tools, things like, I don't know, the 4 Ps of marketing or SWOT analysis or any of these things can all be leveraged for SEO. But I think that there's 2 that I really like from a kind of strategic content ideation perspective, so helping you come up with new or better or different ideas. One of those is the value proposition canvas. It's a tool by a company called Strategizer. Basically, a value proposition canvas. I don't know if you've come across the value proposition canvas, but it's 2 sides to the value proposition canvas. There's the customer, and the customer has, so whatever that customer or customer segment rather. So someone looking to buy a kitchen, they'll have a certain amount of jobs that they need to do, things they need to research. There'll be certain pains, points and problems and things that they have to overcome, and they'll also have a set of goals. So you best to do this on a whiteboard, which is why we have an office or a marketing, our kind of meeting office is full of whiteboards. Yeah, so what you'll tend to do is you'll tend to just make a list of all of the jobs, make a list of all of the pain points, make a list of all of the clients' kind of, gains or what they're trying to achieve or their goals or whatever you want to call that. Then on the other side, you have kind of your business basically, and how you can help relieve those pains, how you can, help them with those jobs and how you can help them achieve their goals. The value proposition canvas is predominantly designed to create additional value in products. It's really for product design. It's a perfect fit for content because you know, someone's on a search engine and they're trying to resolve an issue and they search for something. You know, they're trying to solve a problem, they're trying to do something. So if you can get inside the head of the customer and you can make a list of all of these, you know, pains, gains, jobs, and why you relieve those pains, how you help them achieve those goals, you know, how you can help them with those jobs, you can then take both of those lists for starters, and you can, which is why it's really good to do it with like sticky notes, and you can rank order them sort of in relative importance. You can then do that exactly the same and then see how those things connect with the things that you can do or the things that you can help them with. What you're really trying to do here as, you know, a content marketer or whatever it is, you know, you're trying to get into the mindset of your target customer. This works best if you can sit down with people within the business and do this as almost like a little mini kind of workshop, because, you know, we understand the tactical kind of landscape or the search landscape or whatever it may be, but the customer or the business understands their customers. And again, you know, it's often better to do this with, if possible, not just the managing director or the marketing company or whatever, but, you know, the people who answer the phones, the sales team, you know, get someone from all of the different departments in and really sit down and talk it through. If you do that, typically, you will probably come up with ideas. You'll come up with a whole bunch of ideas, like, you know, I don't know, you'll come up with some things that, well, when you know, say for instance, a customer is measuring their kitchen and they constantly call the support line and say, I'm struggling to do this, or I don't understand how to factor in my windowsill, or I don't understand how to measure around plugs, or whatever it is. You really need to surface all of that information from those people because we're not the experts. You know, the business or the people on the coalface of the business are really the experts in relation to the customer's problems and what they're trying to achieve. So you go through that process and you will generally, you know, the magic really is in the process. It is about, you know, I'm massively all about this kind of conversational approach, or almost kind of like Socratic. You know, I feel like we're just there to ask questions. They already know the answers to all of these, to all of this. They already know what's better, but they can't articulate it. So your job is just to draw it out and draw it out of them and draw it out of them, and then you know, we can go away and we can come up with a series of ideas that we think would be useful. But then, of course, we've got to then do the research around all of those ideas. You know, okay, again, let's just say measuring a kitchen or whatever it may be. Let's stick to this example. Yeah, well, I have made some absolute utter blunders with measuring that kitchen, so I know that, you know.
Okay, so we're talking for personal experience now.
Painful personal experience where we have a house full of trades today coming in to fix some of the problems, you know, some of the my mistakes basically. Yes, so the next thing that we're going to do is almost like a landscape analysis. We're just going to search. We're going to have a look what's out there. We're going to see how the content that is out there and that ranks already, how well does this answer all of these questions and map to these needs of this customer segment or this specific, again, you know, we might be breaking this up, like I say, into individual things. Because we'll probably, if you do this process well, this value proposition kind of process well, you probably come up with several, you know, really good kind of topics. So then you've got to have a look at what's out there now. 10, 15, 20 years ago, there probably would be just gaps, just huge gaps, and you may still find small gaps, but the majority of reasonable questions where at least there's some search volume behind them will probably already have been answered. Sort of loops back to the strategy versus planning kind of problem, in that if you follow a traditional SEO process and you start a keyword research and you identify that people search how to measure a kitchen, and you then go and write an article about how to measure a kitchen, well, you know, I mean, obviously it's even easier now because you could just probably tap it into ChatGPT or some such, get the bones of an article and flesh it out a little bit, and it's probably okay. However, that will never be as good as having done this other process before. So you've got to take what you've discovered and this problem and how you've articulated all of this, and then compare that to what's out there. And that, in many cases, that will be enough. You'll have something that's more detailed. It will have a better structure. There'll be nuance to it. You may want to, break it down into some kind of, I don't know, almost like a kind of knowledge-based type system. You might want to have some internal navigation in that article, because there's obviously a lot of different things to consider when you're measuring a kitchen. It's not just the width of the units. You may find that that's enough. If it is, great, you can kind of carry on. You can make your plan to create your content. If it's not enough, if you look at what's out there and you think, wow, this is great. Everything that we could possibly do out there, or every question we could possibly answer has already been answered. Well, then there's yet another process that you can use called SCAMPER, which again is another kind of time-proven kind of business process for creating new products and services. SCAMPER, basically, it's another trendy marketing acronym, but it stands for, I think, substitute, combine, adapt, modify, put to another use, eliminate, or rearrange and reverse. Each of these steps, and you may just use one of them or you may use several of them, each of these steps is another way to interrogate the content that you've created, or the idea that you've created, and say, how can we make it better? How can we make it different to what's out there? How can we change it up? How can we this is the strategy piece. How can we create something that actually deserves, at the top of the page, and that will add value to the customer via the value proposition, but it's actually better than everything else that's out there? So, again, this is another tool that you can use to just kind of, just basically skim through the content. And again, this works much better if you do it as a conversational process. It's one thing to sit there as a kind of lone, content writer trying to come up with ideas. But if you can involve the customer, and you can sit down with them, and you can have this kind of dialogue, and you can say, well, what could we do,
Hey, if you're still listening to this, you probably find this conversation interesting, and that means that others might too. So the best way you can support this podcast for free is to leave us a 5-star review wherever you're listening to this show. This helps the podcast more than I could say. It means other SEOs can learn and get access to our amazing guests, and that will mean the world to me. All right, with that being said, back to the episode.
How do you do that? To get a bit tactical then, Marcus. Like, if I understand properly, if you want to have the proper approach when establishing your strategy, right? More or less basing ourselves on the VPC or the SCAMPER. It all starts with researching what you want to propose and write content about, right? So you start with that research of, hey, okay, we are in this industry, completely random one, the kitchen stuff, for instance. You need to find what people want to get more information about, and then write content about it. So it's all about that research. Now you're talking about ideation. So sitting down with the customers to get very tactical as an SEO, right? How do you actually do that? How do you connect with somebody who is actually currently looking for kitchen stuff, which might not be the case in 1 year, right? It's not like a base of interested people into kitchen stuff. It's just people who are potentially, like upgrading their kitchen or moving into a new house and redoing it. But it needs to arrive at a very specific point in time, and it can be applied to most of the topics, I guess. How do you then connect with the customers to know what's good to write about?
Do you mean the customer of the agency, or the customer of the customer, or the customer, the person buying the kitchen, or the person you're helping promote kitchens for?
So that's interesting. But I guess, I'd say both. But if I had to choose, I'd say the end customer, right? Because if you bear in mind, for what I understand when it comes to SEO, if you write content, you need to bear in mind that you're writing it for people. And who's actually going to read this content? The end user. So if you serve the end user well, you serve your client agency well as well, correct?
You have to be working with a business. We might have to go back in time a little bit here. SEO, 10, 15, I've been doing this for almost 25 years. 15, 20 years ago, SEO was very much you talk to an agency, then that agency goes away and they do this SEO magic for you. And they may research things, and you may have done some, you may recruit kind of expert writers or whatever it may be, but it was very much, it was this, the marketing landscape kind of just radically shifted when the internet came about. There was these new tactics or new platforms like search engines, and smart, forward-thinking businesses wanted to get ahead of themselves, and they wanted to get to the top of search engine or whatever it may be. But it was so there was a lot of opportunity to create things that weren't necessarily that great. The search engines themselves were more easily manipulated through kind of shady techniques or whatever it may be. But I mean, the reality is what works, and that's all people really cared about at the time. If a business today is a very, very different situation. It's very competitive. It's a very established kind of marketing channel. There's entrenched competition from huge brands. There's, if a business is serious about SEO at this point in time, they've got to be willing to sit down and to do the work properly and to do the research. And the agency, it's very rare that the agency can just, particularly from an SEO content marketing, at scale kind of perspective, that an agency can just swoop in and do it for you. It's just too competitive nowadays. Now, obviously, there's exceptions to that. Things like local search or whatever, it's a lot simpler. If it's just a plumber serving a small geographic area, or an electrician, or kitchen fitter, or whatever it may be, then it's just a much simpler job. But for content marketing, you've got to be, it's got to have that authenticity. You've got to be really diving into the requirements of that end customer, which frankly people should be doing anyway, to form a good marketing plan. But they don't, because for years, marketing has been tactically focused. Where again, 25 years ago, it was the strategy and product strategy and everything else that kind of that was important, because everybody could just put a advertisement in the local newspaper or on TV or on radio or whatever it may be. The last 25 years or so, it's almost been like a kind of technological arms race. The people who could figure out SEO first would do the best, or could figure out Google Ads could do the best. But I think we've really come to the end of that time period now. And that's also accelerating, particularly like with AI and automation in ad platforms and everything else, and the tactical advantage that that savvy kind of or fast moving digital marketers once had is really evaporating, and it's getting back to having the best kind of products, having the best overall kind of communication strategy, having the best marketing. You've got to be doing good work. You can't just, SEO isn't just a magical tactic anymore. You can't just throw, $500 at some links each month and think that.
And I love it, but there is so much golden nuggets in here, Marcus. So the point was more around how do you approach designing a strategy for SEO? And so it was a bit focusing on the VPC, but most importantly, doing your research, ideation, and having this open communication with the end user, which is eventually the one you want to serve. Now, I could play the devil's advocate and be like, okay, but if you want to come up with innovative content, is your end customer going to tell you what to write? Because, Steve Jobs was saying that people don't know what they want, right? So eventually, if you come up with an amazing piece of content, which is new, which has not been tackled before, that people will eventually read, that's how you can differentiate if you come into an already crowded market and space. But now, I guess that's also very hard, and that's not that easily done. I was going to say, during our discussion before this recording, you mentioned to me the blue ocean strategy, right? So here, I guess, if you go into a complete new industry, right? So like if 2 years ago you were going into AI, it wasn't new, in fact, but like when the outburst of ChatGPT, right, everybody starts talking about AI. There is your time to like take a bit of a risk, right? Because the AI trend could be dying 6 months further down the road. Well, it didn't. But so here you can arrive and say, okay, it's a blank page. So I can basically start, establish myself as an authority, write content, because it's a blue ocean. But like, how many times per year, per decade, this type of new industry come in? Because I'm like, exactly. And like, if you want to, as an SEO, stand out or help your clients or help your website rank higher purely on content, I'd say 95% of the niches, it will be very, very hard because you already have well-established actors which, rightfully get the traffic because rightfully have been there in the place for like dozens of years. So how do you, maybe the question for you then on how to get tactical on this. How do you typically advise people when it comes to finding a blue ocean, even in a crowded niche, because maybe there is a niche of a niche, right? Maybe we are talking about kitchen stuff here. But if you start going into the, gothic kitchen stuff or like gender neutral kitchen stuff, right? Very, very trendy topic. I mean, there might be some areas where you can say, hey, okay, this is a crowded space. You actually shouldn't go and try to compete with big actors there for a very big niche. Actually pick a niche of a niche of a niche and start writing content about this, stand out because you see a gap. I mean, I don't know, I'm answering my own question here, but so how do you recommend people going about that?
Yeah, well, this is again where you have a business and the business has to have its own kind of, this is, the strategy is hierarchical, isn't it? So you have a business and the business has a strategy, and then, you have a product which has to have its own strategy, and then you have to have marketing that has its own strategy, then you have to a strategy for each kind of tactic. So, there has to be this kind of holistic kind of worldview of the business and how, what you're doing. And again, like you say, sometimes it might be, the business might be looking to move into new product areas or identify new segments, like, gender neutral kitchen styles or whatever it may be. So, and that's, but you have to also then identify whether there is search demand around that and whether search is the relevant tactic for that. So, it's the idea of a blue ocean strategy is to create something new, isn't it? It's to go from your typical, kind of sector, like, kitchens or whatever it may be, and to create something that didn't exist before, like gender neutral kitchens. That's pretty difficult, and that goes really back behind SEO almost. You're going all the way back into the kind of the strategy for the business. Now, the majority, occasionally, this is where you've got to think more along the lines of traditional marketing and think like, well, what's our product strategy? Can we do something different? What's our, can we niche down? Because, it's another sort of traditional. Are we the cheapest, or are we, you've got to think, the business has got to have a pretty good idea about who they are and what they're trying to, what they're trying to go after. And then the SEO just really should be helping them to do that. Now, still, you're almost certainly going to come up against the kind of situation where very good content already ranking and you've got to do something different or better. And this is where the SCAMPER thing is really, it's invaluable because, if we just very quickly kind of run through the different, there's I can give you for the show notes a link to an article about how you can break this down, but the first section is, substitute. Can you change something? Can you do something differently? If, for instance, if you search how to measure a kitchen and they're just these wordy, boring articles, well, maybe you can create a video. All of the things out there are videos and text articles, and both of those sides of things have been sewn up. Maybe you can do something that's text and video that breaks, that combines the two things together. And has, a text summary and a little video snippet for each of the individual things that someone has to do. What's the third? So substitute, combine. Then you've got adapt. Adapt is to modify something, to change it, to put it into a different format. For instance, with these podcasts, you'll obviously put it on YouTube and you'll break it up into pieces and put it onto Twitter or, TikTok or Instagram Reels or whatever it is, If you get something that already works, you can change it and use it in different ways. Modify, that's sometimes also called magnify or minify. Can you do, if everything out there is not very detailed, can you create something that's super detailed? If everything out there is super detailed, can you create something small and make something really concise? Could you, for instance, maybe you insert animated GIFs that show how to do certain things, or this is where you've got these different steps, and consideration of all of the different steps is really important because you've got to come up with the idea, but then you've really got to review what's out there and you've got to talk it through and say, well, how can we do this better? What do we like about this? What don't we like? This is where things like a SWOT analysis, and I think often the expectation with something like SEO is somebody is an SEO expert or guru, and they can just go to them and they have this magic formula to find out what we should do, or what this secret is of how we get something to rank. But that there is no secret. The secret is to just like talk it through, really like speak to the actual experts, speak to the customers, find out what things bother them, do the research, get the insight, figure out a plan to make something better, then actually put it together and test it. Pay people to go to it, see if it converts. You have to be able to, hand on heart, honestly look at something and say, this is better than what else is out there at the moment. And honestly, even in highly contested market, going up against large brands with in-house marketing teams, generally have the same problems that smaller people do, and you can I tend to, for most businesses, one really, really, really good piece of content can be a complete game changer. If you're a kitchen retailer, and you have an article about a tool or something for measuring kitchens, and it does it better than anything else out there, and people have to give you their email to sign up, and it's attached to a simple little email campaign. That's that one thing. It can be a game changer. It's very, very, very competitive out there. So what you can't do is just crank out something different, something the same as what's out there, and then just try and, use your traditional SEO tactics to try and promote it, because, you're probably, rolling a boulder up a hill, and it's just, it's going to grind you down. But if you can make something that's legitimately better, then promoting that becomes a whole lot easier. And SCAMPER, the value proposition, and SCAMPER, and a kind of 3-step kind of process where you're kind of researching things and, deriving this sort of strategy of why your piece will be better than anything else that's out there, and then putting a simple plan together to kind of, to execute it and deliver that and promote it. It's rare that you find something that can't be improved. That's I guess what I'll probably say. It's rare that in thousands and thousands of businesses we've worked with, it's rare that we ever look at the competitor site and say, oh my God, there's absolutely nothing we can do. There's always something. Exactly. It just depends if the business has the will to do what's required to get there. That's the fundamental point. And that's we like to work with people at this point in the game who have the will to do something different and better. And tools like the value proposition canvas and SCAMPER, ideation tools to help you figure out what that might be. The magic is just in the process and the conversation and working through it. It really is. Yeah, it's, I can't tell you how many meetings I've had when we've sat down and we've tried to run through these kind of processes and look at things, and, it feels almost insurmountable, but you wake up, or just that idea comes to you overnight, or it comes to the customer, and, you have a conversation the following day, and it's like, that's the idea. And, and once you've got that idea, once you've got that spark, and obviously you've got to kind of sanity check it and make sure it's going to work, and the magic is in the process.
So, Marcus, if I were to summarize, but please correct me if I'm wrong. Strategy is about the why you should be ranking for a keyword. Once you have that clear, you can start doing your research around, okay, how do I actually get to rank for certain keywords? So you do your research around what's out there already, what's in your website already, what can you potentially change, right? It's either create or change something to make sure that you put out the best piece of content possible that will get traction and that will get visitors and so on. And then you go into...
There's the initial part of strategy is coming up with the ideas.
Exactly.
Then the research is to test them and look what's out there. Then the actual strategy is how you make that piece of content better based on your customer insights and your landscape analysis. And then the strategy is that big picture thing. This will rank because it's got this and it does this, or it does, it's different, or whatever it may be. It's being able to sort of, hand on heart, say this is going to be better. This doesn't exist at the moment. This tool will be useful to people. So the strategy is that piece.
All right. So you have the strategy, ideation, research, and then you get into the planning?
I'd love it to be a simple procedural flow, but it just isn't. It doesn't always work that way,
It's back and forth and back, and you need to retest and check what happened.
Yeah, and just and sometimes you get it wrong, and sometimes it doesn't work, and sometimes but sometimes you'll catch that kind of lightning in a bottle that will just, it can just be a game changer for a business.
Absolutely love it. Marcus, anything I didn't ask you about SEO strategy that I should have had and that we should put out there in the world?
I guess there's just you've got to choose the right kind of SEO, haven't you? And SEO isn't always the right approach. You really have to come, like for instance, you were talking earlier about the customer has problems that they don't know that they have. When somebody has a problem that they don't know that they have, then SEO isn't always the best approach. It could be maybe if they're searching around it in different ways, but you don't want to, as a general rule of thumb, you don't want to be trying to change people's mind about things. You want to be trying to help them solve problems or achieve goals or complete jobs that they already know that they want to complete. They're on that journey already, and you want to be the person that's helping them. And then as well, it's no good ranking for something and having this great piece of content if it doesn't connect to your overall business mission as well. You have to be, the measuring kitchen one is a good one because obviously it's early in that life cycle. And if you can then link that to some kind of customer outreach that says, like, how are you getting on? Do you need any help? And you can start a conversation. And then, it has to be tied into the kind of, the customer kind of relationship over time. And, it's all very well and good to rank for something that doesn't generate you any business. I'm sure it's, you can feel all warm and fuzzy about that, but it has to be, it has to connect as well. So it's very hard to line up the planets sometimes, it's these, which is why conversations, regular detailed conversations with a structured, when you're trying to solve a problem, you outline the kind of current situation, you outline your objectives and where you want to go. You then work on a strategy to achieve that. Then you come up with, the specific tactics that matter. Even a single channel like SEO will have lots of different tactics and ways that you can appear on the page. Then you create an action plan. Then you determine ways to measure that. There's a lot of moving parts, but in 2024 and beyond, you've got to do the job properly, or don't bother. Do something else. There's lots of other ways to market your business. SEO still has amazing utility, but it's not easy. You've got to be prepared to put the work in. You've got to be prepared to do something better. It isn't just an easy win, and a silver bullet that will generate lots of work with little input.
I wish.
Yeah, we all wish.
Actually, saying this, but then maybe not even, because if it was the case, then everybody would do it, and then it would become hard again, or it would not be a differentiating factor. So that's the whole thing of it's worthwhile because it's hard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and things are normalised like that, aren't they? It's the same with Google Ads or whatever. If something will sell really quickly and easily just because someone's searching for, I don't know, Nike trainers or whatever it is, then the cost per click creeps up because it's strategically easy. So the smarter people go a layer back and try and get to people earlier because you don't want to pay all of your profit just to get that one customer. So you need a broader marketing plan that understands the utility of the different tactics and how they all fit together, and then you need obviously these individual tactical plans, and then they even break down into individual, specific pieces of content. The planning side of it is it's just really important.
Absolutely love this. Marcus, thank you so much for coming on SEO Gurus.
My pleasure.
Hey, thank you so much for making it to the end. For more content updates, visit our website at ghapodcast.com, and don't forget to connect with me on LinkedIn for more tips and insights on SEO. See you in the next episode.